Okay, there we go.
Okay.
We're good.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to the new Liza Hickey and Aaron Roberts show. New co-chairs of the the committee.
Through January.
Through January, so it's
Nice short.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer can take over again. So first we usually do introductions.
Good morning.
Start up here.
Why don't we start with you, Liza, and then
Okay.
we'll work our way back, and then I'll be the last one. Why don't we do that? So we'll start with
Okay.
you.
Liza Hickey, Peoria Public Library.
Jennifer Jacobson Wood, Alpha Park.
Aaron Roberts, Illinois Prairie District Public Library.
Elizabeth Wallace, Normal Public Library.
Jeannie Moonen, Normal Public Library.
Karen Doris, Normal Public Library.
Tracy Carroll, Pekin Public Library.
Joanna Howman, Pekin Public Library.
Courtney Young, Avon Public Library.
Cassandra Stokes, Peoria Public Library.
Maria Garcia, Peoria Public.
Megan Mooney, Galesburg Public Library.
Nancy Chirpman, Galesburg Public.
Karen McClure, Normal Public.
Julia Callaghan, Public.
I feel right there while you were
Okay.
Jane Bradbury, Penn State College.
Lisa Shemansky, RSA. Kelly Green, RSA.
Rhonda Bierman, RSA.
Amanda Gray, RSA.
Wendy Adams Good, RSA.
And there's Martha from RSA. And of course, I'm Erica from RSA. Let's see, if I open the attendees accordion, could you read can you see that?
Oh, I can try. See. I don't know where anybody's from, so I can read the names.
Okay, I'll chime in with the library.
Okay. Here. Melody Heck,
Galva Public.
Rebecca Parkey, Peoria Public.
Mhm.
Rebecca Seaborn,
Farmington.
Rhonda Spearman is here. Chantry Miller.
She is from Blessing Riemann College of Nursing. Oh, I gotta go up. Oh, we start at the bottom.
Lori Haller,
Oh, Washington.
Lindsay Medical,
Carthage.
Jennifer Show, Peoria Public. Genevieve Cross,
Chillicothe.
Debbie Carey,
Let's see, Dunlap.
Amy Gould,
Kewanee.
Abby Miles.
Springfield. We're to the top. Okay, so we have an ambitious agenda again today, so we'll see how we do. But I thought we could start first by having Kelly and Lisa, our two new cataloging and database coordinators, come to the front of the room and just tell you a little bit about their background and what they've been working on.
The last time once you do this, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, I don't know.
For now, maybe.
Oh,
we didn't have to get up.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Kelly Green, and I'm one of the new cataloging and database coordinators here at RSA. My background, I'm a Buckeye from Ohio, and I got my MLIS from Kent State University. And I moved here to Illinois about 15 years ago, but I spent most of that time up in the Chicago area, most recently working at the Park Ridge Public Library. And unfortunately, they had to do some downsizing there, and I was one of the people that got eliminated. So I found this position here in East Peoria at RSA, which is fantastic, and I love living down here now. I'm really into the outdoors and wildlife, so it's a great place to see wildlife even in your backyard, apparently. And so what I've been working on, basically, at my old job, I was mainly doing books and DVDs, and here I have to catalog every format, so it's taken some time to get used to the different formats like sound recordings, but I think I'm finally kind of getting the hang of everything, and so we're going to try to work through all of your tickets as quickly as possible and get caught up.
I'm Lisa Shemansky. I got my master's in science in library and information science from the University of Illinois in December, so fairly recently. I spent the last 2 years working in libraries, 2 of those years at Alpha Park Public Library, doing circulation and a bunch of other random things. Yeah, like everything. And helping Jennifer catalog kits at Alpha Park. And I also worked for 6 months at the University of Illinois at reference there for about 6 months-ish before I got hired on here. So right now, main task is just trying to get through the backlog and getting all of us back up to speed and trying to get those turnaround times quicker for everybody who's sending in catalog requests.
Thank you. Do I need to go up there? If you want to.
I don't really talk.
Yeah, if you want to. It'll be musical chairs.
No reason for me to keep getting up.
Yeah, unless you want the exercise. Okay. So why don't we take a look at the agenda. Those in the room, if you didn't see it when you came in, are on the back table. But we did post the agenda from the RSA website, so rsanfp.com. And then from the left menu, RSA Board Committees Group. And then from the next left menu, CV Management Committee. And then right here towards the middle of the page, we've got today's agenda. So we've done numbers 1 and numbers 2. I thought we would talk next about changes to the database committee. These changes are largely in response to changes that are coming with the RSA users group. After that, we'll talk about the deduplication resolution, where we are with that. That seems to be a never-ending project, but we're getting there.
You sound like you're 1,000 miles away.
Oh,
so
okay. I'm trying to talk loudly, but okay.
Well, but I got to keep the mic off the table,
keep the
otherwise
paper.
it
Yeah.
picks up everything.
Okay. For those online, if you're having trouble hearing, if you could type into the text chat, we want to make sure everybody can hear okay. So after we talk about the deduplication resolution, several details about cataloging requests we wanted to share with you. Some agenda items under basic and OCLC cataloging, and then I do have the supervisor's report at the end with more details. Okay, it's still very soft. Okay, how is that, Bobby? Is that any better? I actually moved it to the other side of the table, away from the mouse and the paper. Please type into the text chat if that's any better. A lot better. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into the agenda. So the changes to the database committee meeting, this actually started with Martha's idea, and it's a good one. We haven't been able to elect a secretary to this group. Aaron Roberts did it for at least 2 years. But I know everybody has a lot to do with their libraries. So Martha and I talked, and we thought it would be helpful if we have one of the members of the cataloging team or the operations team take the notes. So we're going to take turns. Today, Lisa will take notes. And then I did put the schedule here. For the May meeting, Rhonda will take notes. The January meeting, Kelly will take notes. If we do any in-between meetings, those meetings that are scheduled between the longer meetings that are online, we'll just appoint a note taker at the time of the meeting. But this way we can have some notes again for the meetings, and then those will come into play because remember I mentioned that the users group is changing. Kendall is trying to get feedback. You've maybe seen on the RSA listserv, he's posted a survey a couple times. Bless you. So he's still gathering feedback, but we do know one of the things that the users group told Kendall that they'd like to see, starting with the November 2nd meeting, they'd like to see a written report prepared before the users group meeting so that those attending can review it and then be prepared for the discussion. So part of that written report will be a report on what we talk about during the database committee. So these notes that we're doing will be helpful for Aaron and Liza as co-chairs to prepare their written report for that users group report. So think of these notes as feeding into the bigger whole, what Aaron and Liza will do, and then it goes into the users group packet. So that note doesn't really affect anybody here in the room per se, but you should be able to see some notes here. We'd like to try and finish notes within a week or two of the meeting. So we'll post those here on the page and then probably announce on the listserv when the notes are ready, like we do for the meeting recordings. Any questions about those changes? Okay, so let's talk about the deduplication resolution. So I'm going to start by going back to the beginning because this is twisted and turned. A good quantity of the records have been corrected, but some have not. So I will tell you where we are. So remember the goal of this project back in March when it finished was for CERC Dynex to merge duplicate bibliographic records, and those largely we were targeting records from the incoming Quincy Public Library's collection. So that's really what prompted us to do this deduplication. It did merge records correctly based on the OCLC title control number. Remember, that's a unique number found at the top of the record or on the control tab. That number was a good match point, and that part worked well. Remember where we ran into trouble, though, and this is what we talked about at the May meeting. The match point criteria were not consistently followed for title and format. So we resulted in problematic merges of several types of records: graphic novels, large print, microfilm, multi-disc sets. So what we did after much back and forth with CERC Dynex over the summer, last month, August 9th through 13th, we're doing what I call phase 1 of the restoration. So when this restoration happened last month, 90,478 items were moved from those problematically merged records back onto their correct records. 35 serial control records were merged back to the correct record. Some of them had been in serial control manually moved. I know at Peoria especially there were some that were causing immediate problems. So there were more serial control records that were initially moved, but 35 is what were restored last month because they were still not corrected. Okay, so I thought what we would do before I tell you about phase 2 of the restoration, which is what we're currently in, I wanted to revisit the examples that we talked about during our May database meeting of records that problematically merged. Some of them are fixed and some of them aren't, and the ones that aren't fixed will be a good transition into our discussion of this phase 2 that we need to do. So just like last time, I've turned the workflows database from before our dedupe. This is how it looked on February 20th, the day before we started that deduplication project. It's essentially frozen in time. I've turned it pink. Hey Elizabeth, good morning. And so what we'll do is first look up the record in this pre-dedupe server so you can see how it originally looked, and then we'll compare it to the live server, just like last time I've turned it purple so we can tell the difference. Okay, so one of the first examples we talked about last time was a graphic novel. So let's look at it first in here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Liza. Yeah, luckily I wasn't saying anything. Yeah, can you remind me of that if I do that again? Okay, I wasn't even thinking. Okay. Okay, so this here is a Jacksonville item. This one was reported to us as a problem. If I go to the bibliographic tab, notice this title right here. It's a title that describes the graphic novel, both volumes 1 and 2. Not a specific volume, so it describes both. Rather than retype that, let's go back here. we'll look at that same record here. Okay, this record is one that is going to be targeted for restoration in the second phase. So notice on the bibliographic tab, the 245, it's still attached to the record that describes the specific numbered volume. The reason why this wasn't targeted during the first restoration is because I think we helped Jacksonville with this. So we actually, I don't want to say we caused the problem, but we had started to do cleanup of this record in July. Notice right here on the control tab. This was unclear to us during the first phase of the restoration that if we had done manual cleanup on any records, we were told the bibliographic record, if we had brought it in ourselves, the correct record, we were told that the correct record would be left. What we weren't told, though, was that the items would not be moved onto it if they were not manually moved when we were doing our own cleanup. So this is the first category of records that the second restoration is going to target, those that we started to clean up manually, either on our end or your end, and the corresponding items were not moved because that's the default of the CERC Dynex processing. We told them we want the items moved. To us, we don't want manual cleanup anymore because the time has come for them to make this right. So this is a good example, though, of how this record was excluded from the initial processing because of manual cleanup, but it still needs to be targeted because the correct items weren't completely moved back to it. So let me get you a number of how many of those there are. Okay, they call this the Category 1 problem, and that's just over 1,500 items that are affected by this problem. Okay, so any questions about that example? Okay, let's look at a multi-disc set. That was another example we looked at in May. So let's do a different barcode back in the pre-dedupe server. Okay, this one, it's an Indian Summers television program. It's just for season 2. Notice down there in the title. So let's look at this in the purple, the live server. Okay. This one has been restored. So notice right here in the title, it's back to disk 2. Let's compare the OCLC numbers. We'll open this screen. So back in the pre-dedupe, remember you can find that OCLC number in the key field, the 001. The last 4 digits are 3849. Let's go back here. Right here in the live server, 3849. Okay, so this one was targeted during the first phase of the restoration. You've maybe seen these AG, ALS, PDC call numbers. Those are considered anchor call numbers. Anytime you see that call number means the record was restored during the first phase of the processing. We'll probably have more of these anchor call numbers once the second restoration happens. But these AG call numbers, it's an important step that CERC Dynex does because they first load the bibliographic record, but they don't have an item attached to it. So they need to attach something to the record to anchor it in the database, and that's what this call number does. There's no item, though, so it can't get a hold or anything on it, which is good for us because we, of course, don't have all these titles. But the last phase, once phase 2 is completed, will be to have CERC Dynex batch remove these AG anchor call numbers, but we were advised not to do that until both phases are complete. So if you see one of these, it's okay. It won't show up in the catalog. It shouldn't show up in the catalog. But if it does, remember there's no item, so it won't be able to do anything. But it's just anchoring the record, and it will be targeted for batch removal. Okay, any questions about this example? So this one is fixed. Okay. I need to turn the page away from the speaker. Okay. Another example we looked at in May was a large print title. This stemmed from problems with the format matching. So back in the pink, the pre-dedupe server, let's return to search. We'll do a different barcode. This one actually is a Quincy item, so it won't start with an A. Oh no, I typed it wrong. Okay. 3344 100 260. Okay, there's the missing 6. 9656. Okay. There we go. Okay. So notice in the pre-dedupe server, if we go to the bibliographic tab, a spring bouquet, this one, it should be, yeah, this is just a regular print book. Notice the 478 pages. It doesn't have up here in the reproduction fix field, it doesn't have the D, so we know it's just a regular book. This is the control number, remember? 6556 are our last 4 digits. So let's look this one up in the live database. I think this one was merged onto a large print record incorrectly, but now it should be back to the regular print record. So notice there's that AG anchor call number because this record was restored. If you go to the bibliographic tab, there's our 6566, last 4 digits in the OCLC field, and then we have the 478 pages, no reproduction value of D, so this is back on the correct record. So that was targeted during the first phase. Any questions about that example? Okay. The last example we looked at in May had to do with microfilm versus print. Again, this was another format matching problem. So back in the pre-dedupe server, let's look up a different barcode. This might be a little bit slow. It might be a big record with lots of items attached. Okay, so this was the Journal Star microform. Notice 6209 in our key field, clearly microform. It's coded up here with the A in the reproduction field. This record was merged onto the print by the initial dedupe. So what we wanted targeted in the first phase of this restoration was this format matching problem moved back to the record it was attached to before, since that match criteria did not work. So notice here in the live server, the purple, that same barcode, the bibliographic tab, we have in our key field last 4 digits, 6209, clearly microform, reproduction value of A. So that one too was targeted during the first phase. But this one though, just like the others that were restored, it has the anchor call number, so that needs to come out eventually. So before I tell you more about the second phase of this, do you have any questions about where we are with those examples we looked at in May? Okay. Okay, so for the second phase of the resolution project, which I admit was not anticipated, we had once again more communication disconnect with Cersei Dynex. And you already saw an example of that with that graphic novel. We looked at, from what we understood from those discussions of the resolution processing, we understood if we had manually restored the record, either on our end or on your end, if it was causing a problem with circulation, we understood the record wouldn't be reloaded. But what they didn't tell us is that all of the items would be untouched and they wouldn't restore any of the items if we hadn't done that as part of our manual cleanup. So that's the first category of records that need to be targeted. Those ones like the graphic novel we looked at. Remember, there's just over 1,500 of them because they were manually restored. We moved probably the items for the library that had the problem, but we didn't move all of the items, so that's still what needs to be targeted. Cersei Dynex, Kendall actually arranged this, and I think it was the right decision. At Cersei Dynex, we asked to work with a different representative on this project because we feel like, especially after the first phase of this restoration where we weren't told specifically about these 3 problem categories that I'm going over, we felt like we needed to work with someone else there. So we're no longer working with the first representative that did the original dedupe. We're actually working with the supervisor now. And he ran independent quality control reports based on that pre-dedupe server, the pink one. So we have a completely different approach now for making sure all of these records are restored. So I think that was probably the best decision we made, especially after the first phase yielded incomplete results, was to ask to work with somebody else at the company. I know Kendall made it clear too that if there's a future project with that first representative that we worked with, we won't be doing the project because of him. So we've made it pretty clear that we were displeased with the results, and then also too just the lack of clear communication with that first rep. Okay, so the first category, like I said, that they turned up in this independent quality control were those records that were manually restored. The second category, and again, we were not told these were not going to be removed during the first phase. The second category of records that are going to be targeted, the restore stopped because it was the last item attached to the record. Remember, the item was moved to the incorrect record, so we want that item moved back. But the first phase of processing stopped that restore because they were afraid if they moved the item, it would remove the bib record. We want the bib record removed. It's the wrong record for the item. But for some reason, their default behavior is not to remove last copies that are attached to records because it removes the record. Again, this was not made clear to us. I didn't even know to ask because I thought items needed to be moved to the correct record. So let me show you an example of this because it is a little bit tricky to understand. There's just over 300 items where this category 2 problem, last item attached, applies. So let's take a look at an example first in the pre-dedupe server. This one actually is a pecan item. I was trying to pull some items that libraries had reported, or you were going to be in the room, so I could target your collection. Okay, let's see if I type that right. Okay, so this is Ride Down the Wind. This one, I think it's just, yeah, it's just a regular book, 1981, 184 pages. Our last 4 digits of our control number are 4957. Let's take that same barcode. We'll look it up in the live server, the purple one. Okay, so see here, before we look at the bibliographic tab, this is clearly the last item attached to the record, and that's why this category of records was excluded. They were afraid to remove the record because it's the last one attached. If I go to the bibliographic tab, this, in all fairness, this probably does match. Notice the year and the page numbers. But remember, we wanted this undone because we only knew the OCLC number was the clearest safest match point. So this number here, the 0878 in the key field, that doesn't match what it was attached to originally, the 4957. So again, it was not made clear enough to us from the first phase of the processing that if this was a last item attached to a record, the restore would not happen because of the record being removed. We want this record removed because it wasn't the right one, but I guess based on how they've done this processing for other customers, they've said that the preference for other customers has been to keep the record. But again, I feel like that should have been clarified as, you know, we tend to do it this way, but there is the option to have it removed. So I think it's a mix of us not knowing what to ask and then just a lack of clarity on their end about the options. Okay, so before I show you the last category of records that needs to be targeted for the second phase of restoration, do you have any questions about this type where it was the last item? Okay, the last category is the most difficult to explain, so I'll do my best. This category affected the most items. And this category, I know Chillicothe Public and Normal Public, you reported several examples. This category is usually what the problem was with those records that you found that weren't restored after the August processing. So there were 6,838 items on 996 records that are affected by this. This is called Category 3. It's a group of records that originally merged back in March because at least 2 of the records matched based on the OCLC number. There were other records, though, in that group that merged based on the problematic title or format matching. So you've got a group of records, a couple matches were good based on OCLC number, but the others weren't. When we did the restore last month, phase 1, the records that matched based on OCLC title control number, those stayed put because remember those were the good matches. But what the supervisor found at Cersei Dynex of this bibliographic services department is that their processing in phase 1 skipped the rest of the records in that group because at least one of the records merged based on OCLC numbers, so that first phase of processing just completely skipped the rest of the records in the group, not realizing they also needed to be undone because they were matched based on criteria other than OCLC number. Yeah, the guy was working on the weekend to figure this out, so I know he wants this fixed, probably not as much as I do, but I can tell that he really was frustrated by this because I think it's a loophole that they had not known about in their default processing. So this group of records, though, it accounts for quite a few of these problems that still aren't fixed. So let me look here at a Chillicothe item. Okay, so let's take a look in the pre-dedupe server. Okay, let's see if I typed that right. Okay, this is a graphic novel. We go to the bibliographic tab. Our last 4 digits of our key are 2786. It is a specific part of the Hawkeye graphic novel, My Life is a Weapon. Let's snag that barcode. We'll go back to our live, our purple server. Okay, so we can tell this record is still as is because there's no anchor AG call number. If I go to the bibliographic tab, notice that control number does not match, and then notice this record just based on those ISBNs, and then further down here in the physical description, the 300, it's still attached to the record that describes the graphic novel as a whole rather than the part. Again, this record was part of a group of records where probably there was a Quincy record that had this same control number, so that was a successful merge. But the phase 1 restoration skipped restoring the rest of the records in that group because of that one successful OCLC control number match that was in that group. So it's basically skipping any matches that were part of group matches, even though they were based on problematic title or format matching. If one of those matches in the group was successful based on OCLC number, it's like the processing just ignored all of the records and moved on. Again, a huge loophole that I don't think CERC Dynex was aware of. So this, again, will target just over 6,800 items. Okay, before I tell you our next steps, do you have any questions about those 3 categories of records that we're targeting? If you reported trouble with records that weren't fixed, it's probably category 3, or it may be category 1, where we started to do manual cleanup and maybe not all of the items were restored because we were targeting a specific library, or you were targeting just your own. So your trouble is probably category 1 or category 3. The last copy attached to the record, the category 2, I haven't had any of those reported to me from our members, but that doesn't mean that you might not come across one that's problematically merged still. But you're likely to see the trouble with the first category and the third category. And I know for normal and Chillicothe, your trouble fits those. Mm-hmm.
What's the time frame?
That's a good question. I actually spent a good part of last week looking at reports of all of these categories. I'd like to move forward with it, but I have a concern that I shared with the CERC Dynex representative, and this concern has to do with items that reuse barcodes. Several of our libraries reuse item barcodes for magazines and large print rotating collections. So I need him to be able to give me a report of those items where the barcode was reused, because I want them excluded from processing. If he restores those items as part of this bigger project, they're going to be attached to the wrong title because they were cataloged on one title before the dedupe began, and now they've been reused on a different. So I'm waiting for him to give me results for that. But we do want this scheduled as soon as possible once I can get confirmation about the exclusion of those items. I'd like this by the end of the month, next month, if need be. But I know there's a lot of projects internally with you, with our members, we need to move forward on, and this is really holding us back. So we need this corrected as soon as they can schedule it. And I don't have a definite date at this point, but once we have that date, we will post to the listserv, because there will probably be another partial cataloging freeze, not deleting items or editing control numbers. I'm hopeful it's only going to be a couple days, but again, I don't have a time frame at this point. It won't be almost a month like it was in February and March. I'm anticipating it would be shorter, like the August 9th through 13th project. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, once this second phase is over, I will schedule that in-between database meeting to discuss those examples we just talked about for the 3 categories. I had internally scheduled that in-between meeting after phase 1, but then I discovered our results weren't still right. So I knew at that point I could give you an update now, but once this is finally finished, we should be able to do a final meeting where I show you those 3 categories of records: manual restores, last copy, group merges, and show you that those are fixed. So that's what we're moving towards. Okay, a few other details I wanted to share with you because they too have to do with this resolution project. You may be wondering about your OCLC holdings for these records where your item was incorrectly moved to the wrong record. Your holding symbol in OCLC will be on that wrong record. But if that record was restored during the processing last month, our batch load process at the beginning of this month in September, it corrected your OCLC holdings for those things that were incorrectly moved but corrected last month. So you shouldn't need to go to OCLC. Now when we do the second phase of the restoration, either this month or next month, depending on scheduling, our batch load, either at the beginning of October or at the beginning of November, depending on when we do the second restoration, that will take care of moving your holdings. So the OCLC piece should be taken care of by the batch load because those were moved in our database. Nobody was manually updating holdings in OCLC from this. Any questions about that? Okay, we talked about those AG anchor call numbers, so remember those are harmless, and those will come out once this is finished on both phases. Okay, and then the last detail I wanted to share, of course it's a multi-option here detail, but there's going to be some items that can't be restored even when phase 2 is complete. So I wanted to tell you what those items will be. So items that are in transit, either between libraries or to fill a hold, if they need to be moved to the correct record during the resolution processing, those can't be moved. We have a list right now of 25 items that were in transit from the first phase of the restoration. Martha is working with those libraries that are affected. We'll probably have another list of in-transit items from the second phase of the restoration. So just be on the lookout if you have in-transit items. You will hear from Martha, and then your next step would be to try and find the item on the shelf, and if you can't find it, mark it as missing. Okay, this is on my list to ask Cersei Dynex. We were told one serial control record in August could not be moved to the correct record because there was a claims error. I'm still unsure which record that is, so I'm hoping the supervisor who's working with us can tell me, because that was something that the first rep was supposed to tell me and didn't tell me. So if you have a serial control error, you will hear from me. It might be Peoria, so that you can resolve it, and then we can either move your serial control record or you can just delete it if maybe it's not needed. So that just is one record though. Okay, this last issue is, I'm not happy about it, but this is what has happened, so I think we need to go over this and say what I'm trying to do to help and what you can do on your end. We've noticed, and I know several of you have reported, Consumer Reports, Popular Mechanics, several of you have noticed when you're cataloging magazines in workflows that there's now 2 results. So let me show you an example of one of these. Okay, so again, this was an example reported to me by Jacksonville. Okay, for the Barron's magazine. So Jacksonville just has one copy of Barron's. They don't have issues attached to 2 records. They're not supposed to. What we're seeing as a result of the incorrect merge and then the restore of these records, we're seeing that items that were cataloged before the deduplication began in February, they're now attached to the correct record. Items that were cataloged since the dedupe finished in March, they're attached to the incorrect record because that was the record available, so the library used the incorrect record to catalog their magazines. So let me show you dates here, how this comes into play. I'm going to modify. So basically magazine holdings are split right now across 2 records. So notice for Jacksonville, we can tell this record, notice the 3161 in the last 4 digits of the key field. We can tell this record was not restored because it doesn't have the AG anchor call number. So this record was considered the master during the initial dedupe. So notice these call numbers for Jacksonville. Most of them, some of these she's moved to this record, but notice it does have, it still has some call numbers on here. Oh no, wait a minute, hold on, let me backtrack a minute. Okay, so this is the record that would have been kept during the dedupe. So anything after the dedupe was cataloged on this record. So notice these call numbers right here. They were cataloged after March 2017. So they're all more recent records. So if I look at that same record in the pre-dedupe server, let's pull the control number. Okay, so again, control number here, also in the 001 field. Notice Jacksonville is not attached to this at all. So before the dedupe began, and this record was considered the master record, Jacksonville was not attached to this at all. So they should not be attached to this record. It's not the best match for their magazine. But the dedupe, though, remember, considered this the master record, and it moved all of the Jacksonville items onto it. Okay, so if I go back here, the other record that has their older issues attached to it, these have been restored. Notice here's the AG call number on this record. We can tell it's been anchored in during the restoration, and it restored all of those call numbers that were cataloged before the dedupe. So these items are attached to the correct record. This is the record Jacksonville should be using. So let's look at this in the pre-dedupe server just to see how they used it there. Okay, so notice, again, the 9218, that should match, 9218. And we've got all of those Jacksonville issues. Some of them they've probably deleted because they're older. They've probably done some cleaning out since then. But notice this is the record they should be using. So in workflows, you have the copies before the dedupe on the correct record, but then remember this correct record was taken out. So the record that was left, that's what was used to catalog the more recent issues. So what I've started doing from the first phase of the restoration, there's about 250 serial titles that need holdings moved back to the original records. So I started doing that. Consumer Reports, Popular Mechanics, there were several other titles. I started first with the ones that you guys reported to me because there have been several emails and phone calls about this. I'm trying to work through the list to get them moved. This is a project I feel like we need to do it on our end because you've put up with this long enough. I don't want each of you to have to go back and transfer hundreds of magazines. So I am working through the list, but if you see, especially as you're cataloging a new issue of a magazine, that it's split on 2 records like this, send me a note so that I can prioritize it as I work through the list. But try and use the record that has your older copies attached to it, because remember, that means it's the record you were originally using, and that's the good record. There'll probably be more serial titles that need this done after the second phase of resolution is complete, so that's on my list, is to rerun the restored serial records and see from that second phase if there's more records that have this problem like they do from the first phase. This is not Cersei Dynex's, well, it kind of is Cersei Dynex's fault because the wrong record was taken out initially, but they only are targeting for restoration items that were cataloged before the dedupe, so they would not be moving any magazines you cataloged after March. That would not be part of what they're targeting. So this, like I said, I'm not happy about this problem, but at least now, hopefully you can understand what happened, and if you see duplicate magazine titles, you'll know to report them so that we can prioritize cleanup of them. If you're a serial control library, your serial control, though, should be on the record you were using originally. So you shouldn't have duplicate serial control records. It's just for the libraries that do call number and item maintenance for cataloging. Okay, that's probably, it seems like that was a long discussion, but that is the last detail at this point about where we are with the dedupe resolution. Do you have any questions? How about online? Are there any questions? Okay, so once we have dates for the second phase, stay tuned to the listserv. Stay tuned to about a partial cataloging freeze. And then remember with these magazines, report problematic titles. I see it, yep. So Melissa at Quincy asks if it's okay if she transfers items to the correct record, magazine record. Yes, Quincy is the library that has the most of these magazines split across 2 records. And I know Tim on her team reported to her a couple magazines. But just make sure, like I mentioned, you're using the record that has your, well, in Quincy's case, it's tricky because you want to be using the RSA record, not the Quincy record, because we ultimately want the RSA record kept. So if you, Melissa, are transferring and have questions about which record to keep, reach out to me so that we can make sure you're using the correct record, and then we can delete the record that is no longer needed. Okay, anything else? Most of you, though, if you're seeing this, if you were doing this, you would use the record your older copies were attached to, but in Quincy's case, they probably want to use the RSA record, and that might not have their older copies. Okay. Okay, so why don't we go over a few things about cataloging requests, and then we'll take a break. So let's check the agenda here. Okay. Just a couple of details about the backlog updates. Like Lisa and Kelly mentioned, and Rhonda too, all of them are working very hard. We have a very deep backlog. We've had well over 1,000 cataloging requests over the past few months. We were 50% short-staffed, so we do appreciate everybody being very patient, especially as we get back up to speed. But I wanted to assure you, everybody here is working hard to move through your requests. Since we became fully staffed again on July 17th, that was the day Kelly joined us, but keep in mind she wasn't doing cataloging requests right away when she joined us, but Lisa had joined us July 5th. But since that July 17th date, we've had 1,384 cataloging requests been closed. So they're making good progress. They really are. Currently, we have 1,436 cataloging requests still open. So you can see as requests get closed, more come in. So I just wanted to give you an idea of numbers, but we are working through them, and we appreciate your patience. What I'd like to do now that the request form is revised, Kelly and Lisa will tell you more about that in a minute. I'd like to start to post, we'll shoot for weekly, but it may be bi-weekly depending on my schedule. But I'd like to start sharing, and this was Kendall's idea on the listserv, just where we are with the backlog. Especially if you're considering submitting a cataloging request, you'll have an idea of what we're working with. We're still not giving you turnaround times, though, because it just depends on how much work the item needs. So we aren't comfortable telling you, 3 or 4 weeks at this point, but we're working towards that. We still want you to submit cataloging requests, but you'll see when Lisa and Kelly go over the form, if something is truly a rush request and should be prioritized. I know Courtney at the Avon Library had a good couple examples that needed to be rush requests. We do want you to use that option, so more to come on that. Okay. And I think that's probably good on the backlog updates. Do you have any questions before Lisa and Kelly show you the form? Yeah.
Are you doing them in the order that they were received?
Yes.
Requests? Because I have one way back in June and one early July, and the ones they're doing now are much more recent. So am I going to assume maybe they're lost?
No, that's a good question. So for those online, Joanne from the Pekin Library asked if cataloging requests are being done in the order that they were received, because she has a couple from June and July that have not been responded to yet. Now chime in if I'm wrong, but we are working through oldest ones, correct, that have been submitted?
Yeah, there might be some aspects, but we might be at different stages.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm further along than Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, she's further along than me because she started before me, and also I had to wait a while before I could start doing it.
Sure.
And part of that is that I started doing books as soon as I started, but I had to wait a couple weeks to do AP
Sure.
because I had to get trained and checked on that.
Sure.
And so now I'm kind of going back and doing the old AV stuff, and I still have some from June.
Okay.
And some of those AV tickets take a really long time, so I'm,
Sure.
yesterday I did a Clint Eastwood movie marathon thing that needed original cataloging and took me several hours to do. So what I'm trying to do is
Sure.
do one or two of those really hard ones a day, and then do some easier ones too.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're not being done in order, but within the next couple of weeks we should get caught up on all the old June ones. And
I think what we might do for those online, so Kelly described how she has many of the older tickets from June and July, and this was not intentional when I reassigned tickets. I think I might actually shift some of them to Lisa to have her help with some of your oldest tickets. But Kelly has ended up with older tickets from earlier in the summer, like what you submitted, Joanne, at Pekin, where they need more original cataloging work done on them, so they're not as quick to do. So I think internally I'll make a note that we'll readjust those oldest tickets and move some of them to Lisa so that you can start to get a turnaround time that is faster. Yeah.
I didn't really care how fast they were done. I just was afraid that maybe they got lost.
No, nothing has gotten lost. But I do think if there's things from June and July that haven't been responded to, maybe I could shift the weight. But internally and even out the workload a little bit more. So that's something that I'll look into on my end. But no, none of your cataloging requests have been lost. I would say keep the email like you've probably been doing. And as long as you've got that email, that means it went through. If you never got the email, that would be the time to ask a question. But if you still have the email and you have a question about the status, forward that confirmation email. Yeah. Okay, good question. Anything else before we have Lisa and Kelly show you the form? Okay.
Okay, so this is our home page, and you all know where to find the cataloging request forms right here.
Do you want to pull up this one, revisions? Like so they can see the boldface stuff? Or,
Oh,
you wanna do that?
I thought we were. Okay.
You want to pull that up too? We could do both. If you go to the folder.
Okay.
And then go to PC. Pull up your drive. And then you're going to go EP Lab. And then training material. And then this committee meeting, 2017, September. And then the first one's the cataloging request form. This way.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That way they can see that the edits too. So because it's all boldface, and we can switch back and forth and fill out the form all the time.
Okay. Okay, so now where was I? All right. So the cataloging request form has been revised a little bit to hopefully make it easier for you guys, as well as to make everything clearer for us so that we can get your work done faster and be more efficient. And so let's see. So the beginning of it, and why do I have this stupid thing up here that I can't scroll? All right.
Will it not let you scroll down on the page?
Yeah, because this little thing for the chat is, oh, I'm going to try to move it here. It's hiding my scroll bar. Okay. So the beginning of it, this part is basically the same as what it was before. When you get into the actual form, I'm going to fill it out because we're going to do an actual cataloging request so you can see what you get at the end. So I'm just going to fill in my name, and this part is all the same. And I'll just pick a library here. We'll do, let's see, we'll do Alpha Park. And I'll put in my email address. Oops. One thing about when you're filling out these forms, some browsers will try to autofill with things that you've typed in before. And you should be careful when you're using autofill to fill these things in, because we had an incident where somebody typed in their email wrong when they were filling out the form, and then because they were autofilling after that, they kept typing their email wrong for every cataloging request that they did. And so they were never getting the confirmation emails that you're supposed to get because their email was wrong in all of them. So just check if you're using the autofill feature that everything in there is actually how it's supposed to be. Okay, so where things have started to change is with this part, which is the new way that we're asking you to tell us if you need a rush request. What we did in the past was it was just, there was a question down below where it asked you if you wanted to be a rush, and you typed in yes or no. And the problem with that was that where it told us that it was a rush request was really buried in the ticket. And if you only have a small number of tickets, that's one thing, but when you've got thousands or over 1,000 of them like we do now, it makes it really impossible for us to figure out which ones are rushes and which ones are not. So one of the things that we changed was this description at the top where we tell you what types of situations you would ask for a rush request. There are some libraries that don't have the capability of bringing in records from OCLC, and they are not able to or don't want to even put in a brief record. So if we don't get to the request, then their item can't circulate. They don't have anything to attach it to in the system. So what we are asking you to do rush requests for is for things like if you really need to get the item circulating because maybe it's for a program, or you have a patron who's waiting for it. And that was one of the things that we actually added, was this part about a specific user is waiting to check out the item. Or if you're a academic institution and you need something as an academic course reserve, that would be another example. What we don't want you to do is just say, oh, well, my library is more important than everybody else's, so I'm going to make all my stuff rush so that it'll move to the front. That's not what we want you to do. But if you have a legitimate situation where something needs to be rushed, then you can let us know. And we do say here at the bottom that we'll try to accommodate rush cataloging requests within a single business day. And what that means is that we will try to get something in the catalog that you can attach your item to so that you can get it circulating within a business day. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get full cataloging within a business day. If we can't find anything in OCLC and we have to original catalog it, it's going to take longer. But we'll at least get something in there so that you can get your item circulating to your patrons. And so basically it's a radio button and you pick, rush or standard. And of course most of them are going to be standard, and that's the default. And then below that, let's see if
So it should be were you trying to get back to the PDF?
yeah, I was
That's right there.
okay. I was not planning on doing this. Okay.
So this document that Kelly has pulled up right now, just as a visual to kind of show you where the changes are. Any place that we've made a change is either in green or red, just to kind of give you a visual.
Yes, and you can see the Washburn is in red because we had misspelled that before, this branch of Illinois Prairie, and so we fixed that.
Thank you, Erin, for telling Rhonda.
Yes. Apparently we thought you were Washington, not Washburn.
Yeah.
It was like that since we made this.
The W.
I never used it till now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this part is what I just described, the rush requests. And then these next couple of things should be the same, the title, and I'll go back to that. So let's put in a fun title here. Let's see, Game of Thrones. Everybody's into Game of Thrones, so I'll make that the title. It doesn't have to be like, it's just to let us know what the item is. It doesn't have to be the exact, you don't have to do the full title if it's long or anything. This next question is a cataloging request associated with another cataloging request. That's usually for things like where you want to send us, additional scans, or you have some added information that you want to let us know about the previous request that you sent. So you put in the confirmation number, which you'll see at the end, in here, and then that'll let us know that we need to affiliate this with another request. And then this next section, I think this part is also different because it used to be we would ask you, I'm not sure. It doesn't say it's the same, but it's a multiple choice question. Do you want is it an upgrade to a level 3, a level M, a level 8, or just none of the above, or if you're not sure. If you want us to help with a specific problem on an OCLC record, yes or no. And then we get to the format, and you have a lot of different formats here you can choose from. And I'm going to pick the book format because I want to show you some changes that we have made to how we do books. And if we go back to our PDF here, there's also this question about is there already a brief record, yes or no, and you can select that. One of the new things that we added with the book form, and this only appears if you select book as the format that you want us to catalog. You have a lot of options, and you can choose multiple ones about different features of this book, whether it's a paperback, hardback, library binding. One of the new things we added is, does the book not have a title page? Because sometimes you get these books, especially like the children's board books and some other children's things, as well as some adult things, where there's no title page, the title is just on the cover, and per cataloging rules, we're supposed to use the title page as the source of the title, unless it doesn't have one. And so what we've gotten is sometimes people send us a scan, and it's just the cover, but they didn't send me a scan of the title page, and I'm like, well, does this book not have a title page, or did they just forget to scan the title page? I don't know. So I don't know whether I should contact the library and ask them if there was a title page. So this way, if the book doesn't have a title page, you can let us know, and then we don't have to go back and forth with questions. And then there's also some things that were in there before, large print braille, black and white or color illustrations. One of the other things that we added, let's see. Okay, let me go back here. You can see no page numbers and last preliminary numbered page. And if we look at the actual form, Sometimes a lot of books, again, especially the children's picture books and other graphic novels and other types of things, there's no page numbers. So normally we ask you to send us a scan of the last numbered page. And this way you can let us know that, hey, this book doesn't have any page numbers, so I'm not going to be sending you a scan of the last numbered page because there isn't one. I think in the past that was just something that you had to write. There's like a blank section at the bottom where you can sort of fill in, and you had to put it there. So now we give it to you as an option. This section is kind of helpful because it also gives you a place where you can tell us if there are preliminary pages that have Roman numerals, which a lot of books do. A lot of times when libraries send us scans, they just send us the last numbered page, but they don't think about that little section at the beginning where it has, 15 Roman numeral pages. And we kind of need to put that in the record too. So this way you can let us know if your book has a section like that. And then you don't have to scan it. You can just, I believe there's a place where you can, if you click on it, you can actually type in the Roman numeral. So if it's like 15 Roman numeral pages, you can just type in XV, and then we know to put that in the record, and you don't have to bother scanning that part. And then I think these oversized and accompanying materials were already in before, so that's not new. Another new thing is with this, indicate whether the measurement of the front cover entered below is in inches or centimeters. We've given you the choice of inches or centimeters for a while, and I guess that was because some libraries really did not want to measure things in centimeters for some reason. In book cataloging, we're really supposed to put centimeters in the record, so what happens is if you tell us in inches, we have to kind of try to figure out, okay, how many centimeters is that, which takes time, and also it's like if you say 9 inches, that could be anywhere from 21 to 23 centimeters, so we have to sort of guess. So we're still giving you the option, but what we're asking you now is to give us centimeters if you can. If you can't find, give us the inches, but we would prefer centimeters. And then this is the space where you can actually give us the measurement. And then it also tells you what the scans are that we need from you, or photocopies if you're sending us photocopies.
Oh, we'll leave it. If you could, if you're willing to scan it, that's great, but if not.
Yeah, and I'll just go back. You're going to...
The question online, I already answered it, but...
Okay. Sure.
The question is, if we previously submitted a request that needs to be rushed, would it be okay to send an email with a confirmation number and ask that a brief record be created so the item can circulate? The answer is yes, you can do that. Send it to the help desk and put in the subject line rushed, and then in the body make sure you put in the confirmation number, and we'll get back to you.
Yes. Yes. And I'll just change this to video recording since that's what Lisa's going to talk about.
Yeah, so we made 4 new options for video recording, so prepare yourselves because this is awesome. All right, so under video recordings, the 4 new places where you can mark things up and give us more information are right here. We have a new option for multi-disc set, and then these 3 here, the widescreen version, director's cut, and letterbox, used to just be one option. But realistically, that's kind of weird when you just mark that and you're like, okay, so what is this? Is it letterbox, directors, widescreen? What am I supposed to be looking for? Am I missing something when I'm looking at these scans? Like, what am I missing? So we divided it up so you can, if it's only widescreen, you could just click widescreen. If it's just letterbox, you could just click that. So it's a little more clear when we're looking at the record. So a fun thing with that, so we have video recording. If you hit multi-disc set, you'll see this little option pop up down here. It'll now ask you, do you want the multi-disc set circulated as a single unit associated with one single item, or do you want the multi-disc set split into subsets or individual discs, which you'll have to submit separate cataloging requests for each subset. So the reason why this is important to us is if we get a cataloging request that has a giant set of something, some libraries like to split things up, and you know, we might just have to make a decision based on how you send us stuff, whether or not to catalog it as one whole thing. If you don't tell us to separate it out, you might not get exactly how you want that item cataloged. So again, this is just one more way to help make it a little bit clearer on how you want things cataloged when you send in a request for us. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure we have everything all filled out. Game of Thrones. That looks good enough for me. Okay, so I'm going to use this, but before I submit the record, I'm going to go through a couple things that were added on to the very bottom of the request form. So we've added this section here that says the 10 per day total applies to cataloging a request submitted via digital scan, digital photograph, cloud upload, fax, photocopy, Rails delivery, or a combination of these. Because there used to be a pretty creative loophole without this here that we didn't specify that how you send things in are part of your 10 items per day. So you could have read it as I can send in 10 cataloging requests via the Rails delivery, or 10 via fax, or 10 via photocopy, which again is a really creative loophole. But we kind of squashed that and just made it very clear what 10 per day actually means. So it's just 10 per day regardless of how you submit the request. Again, just to add some further clarity. The other thing we added on the form is down at the very bottom when you select how you're sending in the copies. Under the fax option, sending the photocopies via Rails delivery or sending the physical item itself to RSA, we added a line about how you do not need to print off the cataloging request form and send it in with your item or the photocopies or your fax. It's helpful if you put your library's name on whatever routing or mailing envelope you're using, just to kind of like help the search move a little bit faster in the help desk, but really just having the title is usually all we need. So that's just kind of help you guys save paper and save your time too, because your time is valuable. Okay, so those are the changes we made on the form, and I'm going to hit, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to hit submit so you can see what the next page looks like. So you guys all know that when you submit the cataloging request form, you get this page that pops up to let you know that the submission went through okay, and you'll also get an email sent to you, which Kelly will talk about the changes there. But on this new form here, let me pull up where the changes have been made. Okay, so again, everything that's in red are the boldface changes that we've done to this new page that pops up. So we used to have here kind of what the turnaround time would be for the items, but again, because of the backlog we have that Erica described, you know, 7 days is not quite realistic. Also, just in general, even if we were caught up with everything, 7 days might not be applicable to everybody because there might be issues with the record. We might need photocopies. We might need something. So it might not even be done in 7 days, even in a perfect world, because there might be complications that arise. So just kind of getting rid of that makes it a little more realistic language. So the other thing we changed too was we did add a little line in here thanking you all for your patience and how much we appreciate your patience as we work through the cataloging backlog, because I know it's kind of been rough and it sucks having things take so long, but we do thank you and appreciate you for being patient. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly.
Okay, what I'm going to show you is just one last thing, which is the email that you should be receiving when you submit a cataloging request. And since we don't have a real email, this is sort of a mock-up of what it's going to look like. And basically, what we did was we changed some of the wording a little bit from previous emails that we sent out. Of course, up here is your confirmation number, which you want to keep track of in case you have a situation where you need to send us some more information, and then you can put that in the new ticket to refer to it. We've now changed the first paragraph. Thank you for submitting your cataloging request. Once the item has been cataloged, we will send an email to the address that you provided on the request form. So that's letting you know that when we get your item done, you will get an email from us. And we added a sentence here about RSA staff appreciate your patience as we work through the cataloging backlog, because of course we want to let you know that. And then this second paragraph is if you submitted a cataloging request and have a question about its status, because a lot of people, are wondering what happened to my cataloging request, or if you need to make any changes, you can forward this email to the help desk at this email address. This is so we get it right away, because if you what people have been doing sometimes is opening another ticket, and then it's like, then the ticket sits out there and it's another thing that we have to close. So if you send it to the help desk rather than opening a new cataloging request, then we'll see it right away, because we see things at the help desk more quickly. So that's basically the two major changes that are in the email, and I think everything else is about the same as what it was before. So.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
All right, I'm up here to give you a reminder of problematic encoding levels of 3, M, and 8. We encourage you, despite the backlog, to please continue reporting them. And if you find them in workflows, please attach to them. If you find them in OCLC and that's all you can find, please bring them in. Don't leave them out there and report that there is a 3, M, or 8 out in OCLC and you would like it upgraded. Please bring it in, send in the cataloging request, and we'll get to it when we can. As a reminder, this is what 3M and 8s look like in workflows. The purple's the live server. Okay. The 89 one. All right. Up here in the top right corner, you'll see it says encoding level 3. So as you can tell, this is a pretty bad record, but it's not a bad placeholder so that your item can get out there and start circulating. You would definitely want to report this and send in a cataloging request so that we could upgrade it for you. There's another one. You see it's a level M, and Intel, it probably needs a little beefing up. So yes, please attach to it, but please send in a cataloging request. Up here again, we have 8. Once again, please attach to it, but send in a cataloging request. Does anyone have any questions? I can't see the chat, so I'm hoping no one in chat has
Any questions?
Do you wanna, I'm wondering if we click the red arrow, or you'll see when you get
Oh,
back.
I see it.
Yeah, you see that? And then there should be that little chat window on,
Yeah, I have it all moved over. So,
let's see, yeah,
is I see something?
I'm thinking. So try clicking that little plus
there it
sign
is.
right there. Yeah, and I think there was a question.
Is the library that pulls it in that sends the request or any time we see one? Okay. The person who pulls it in should.
Repeat the question.
The question is the library that pulls it in the one that sends the request or any time we see one? Since there are still records in the system from before we started all this that are level N's or level 8s or 3s, please report them too. Not just the library that sends, that pulls it in, because it might have been pulled in before we changed. Yeah, it could have, when we were in Carl, that's how long that record could have been there. So please report them.
Mostly, though, we just want you to use them, like Rhonda kept saying, just use the record if it's the only one available,
Yeah.
so that we can get it
Because
upgraded.
if you send in a request and you didn't import that record, your item is sitting in your tech services department, not circulating. Why would you want that? If you could put that on, I mean, yes, it might not be the perfect record, but we can make it a better record later. I know that goes against some of us. We're like, no, I don't want to do that. But really, for customer service, that item needs to be able to get to circulate. So send in the request, and if we have any other questions, we'll ask you about them. But we want your item out there so that your patrons can get those items instead of sitting in your tech services area. We have another one. Melody asks, so we can attach and download level M3 or 8 and send in cataloging requests. Yes, you can. Please. I mean, it's not the best case, but if that's all that's in OCLC and you have the time to pull them in from OCLC, send in the request for it. If it turns out not to be the right record, we'll fix it. I know that I've come across a couple that were put on the wrong record, but that's okay. I fixed it. That's what we do. Any other questions?
I just have one going back to the form. We're asking about if it's a 3 and we're 8.
Mm-hmm.
There's no record. There's no bullet for no record. So you just...
The question is, there's no bullet in the place where it says level 3, M, or 8. It doesn't. There isn't a bullet for no record. So let's go back to the form. I don't know if we've got that. So
see if you can go to that. Yeah, okay. So up here.
There.
Well, I think why we didn't put no record in this question is we're asking if it's an upgrade.
Yeah, it's a question of an upgrade. So if there is no record, it's not an upgrade. So that you wouldn't choose.
Yeah.
So then we just put that in the note field down below.
Well, you actually wouldn't have to say anything. You would just submit the cataloging request and just say, if there's a brief record, say yes there. But if you can't find anything in OCLC, our first step is to check OCLC to see if there's a record. First, we check workflows in OCLC. So if you can't find the record in OCLC, don't worry about putting a note on the form about that. Okay. Because that'll be understood.
Okay. We always put down below that there was no record.
Yeah. If you want to continue putting the note and that doesn't, if it's part of your process, it sounds like you're used to doing it, but we just assumed if it needs an original record, you wouldn't pick any of these options, so that just means it needs something. Yeah.
Anything else?
We usually scan the last preliminary page. Would you prefer catalog people? Us to send in that the Roman numeral or scan the page?
The question is, for preliminary pages, would we prefer that you show us a scan or a picture of that last preliminary page, or if we want you to tell us what that last preliminary page is. And the question is, I want a scan or a picture of it.
You'd rather have a scan?
Yes. I would,
Yeah.
instead of you telling me what number it is, I would rather have a picture of it.
Yeah, but we'd like you to fill in what we're hoping, because what I don't want to do is have everybody just put in page numbers on the form. The scan is important for the page numbers. But what we were trying to do, like Kelly mentioned, that preliminary page is often overlooked. We were hoping if that's an option that you select on the form, that might encourage you to pay more attention to that option. But we would, though, still like a scan of that page submitted. Because, again, we asked for the last number page because that's important, so a scan is also important of the preliminary page. Does that make sense? So we were trying to make people notice it more because it's overlooked.
And the same that if the book is separated and it has different last page numbers, say there's 2 books inside of it, and each of those books has a last numbered page. I want to see a last numbered page for each one of those, because that has to go into the record. And if I don't have it, I wouldn't know that this has 2 different page numbers. I need to know that in order to, well, we all need to know that. Yes, Elizabeth?
Okay, on the 2 books in one book, last page, if it's not numbered sequentially all the way through?
Yes.
Okay, sometimes they number it sequentially all the way through, even though they have 2.
Yeah, sometimes you get page 1 is page 1 and the last page is how many numbers there are. But in some cases, some weird publishing instances, they'll put 2 or 3 books or 6 or 10. Yeah, and you need to know what each of those numbers are.
Good question.
It was a great question. Any other questions? I get to answer questions.
You're empowered, Rhonda.
Yes. All right. If that's all, I will turn this back over.
Okay. So why don't we take can I take a 5-minute break? We've still got quite a bit to cover, but we're making good progress. So why don't we reconvene a little before 11:10? So it's 11:03 right now. Remember, restrooms are down and to the right. Start the recording again. Okay, so let's take a look back at the agenda. So number 6 here, remember we did a workflows upgrade on August 20th. Luckily, there were no cataloging enhancements during that upgrade, so nothing broke cataloging-wise. I know other things broke, but with cataloging, there were some enhancements, but not really relevant to what we do. So no cataloging enhancements from that update. You might have seen mentioned, it was earlier this summer on the OCLC cataloging listserv. If you get that listserv in your email, there was discussion about how the OCLC title control number is anticipated to reach 1 billion with a B later this year. Soon after that announcement came out on OCLC CAT, Cersei Dynex released their own announcement on their listserv saying that they can accommodate that increased number. So we don't have any examples to show yet because that number has not. Oh, you have? Okay. Oh, it's there. Okay. Good. You guys know more than I do. I was trying to find an example in workflows. Is it 10 digits or 11 digits?
Oh, I don't know. I just know that they start with 10.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't count.
Because I was trying to find one that was 11 digits and I wasn't able to find one.
I just did one this morning that if you want to look at it.
Yeah, do you know the title?
Land Before Time, Invasion of the Tiny Saurus.
Okay, let's just try it one more time. I was trying to find one, but I thought, oh, okay, this looks good. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it looks like it starts with ON, and then it's got the 10 digits. I was looking for one that was 11. At some point I had read it was going to be 11 digits, but no, so good. We're already accommodating these. Yeah, so 10 digits. Good, so that's
Yes.
it is an M. Yeah, good eye. Okay, good. So that's one thing that's working correctly in our database. I shouldn't laugh about that, but does anyone have any questions before we revisit the uniform title searches with Julia? Thank you for that example, Joanne. That was helpful. Okay. Julia, do you want to show how that title is now searchable in the title index? We did some reconfiguration, and I am glad Normal reported this because our first configuration wasn't correct. So I think I'll step out of the way, and then if you want to, I just have the one workflows open, I think, or did I leave both of them open? They're both.
The purple one, right?
I think maybe that one.
All right.
Yeah, that's it, the purple one.
So yeah, we had reported back in May that we noticed that uniform title searches were not working when you put them in the title bar. They worked under general search, but not under title. So we have a couple that should work now, where it was bringing up the English language books, but not the Spanish language books. So here you can see doing the English language search for There Is Bird on Your Head. You get the Spanish language book that has the uniform title in the 240 here. So that is now working correctly, which is awesome. So anything else?
Do you want to show the browse search for the title too, because that needed to be tweaked. So if you do that same search for There Is a Bird on Your Head in the title browse, so if we flip to the advanced and change our index to title, yeah, and we'll just type that same title. This too, it wasn't configured correctly, so if we on the right pick the type of search for browse, so notice in the results it has the English, and then right below that it has the Spanish. So it does display differently in keyword versus browse, but that was an important detail too, because it was configured in the back end of workflows to the wrong type of index, so it wasn't searchable at all as the title. So we should be in good shape there. James ran an in-depth indexing so that he also indexed existing records like this one. Typically when you make an indexing change, it just affects records from that point forward that you catalog in the database. So we did do deep indexing so that this should be reflected on all uniform titles. Okay, any questions? Thank you for reporting it. Okay. Okay, let's see. If we take a look at the agenda, the last item there under the basic cataloging, the annual records, I did want to reassure you that this too is still on our priority list. With the dedupe taking longer than expected, I haven't made progress on this like I wanted to. Do you, Kelly, want to hand these out for me? I have the proposal for rethinking high volume serials. So this was revised in May, and I thought it wouldn't hurt just to give you another copy of it, because I can't remember if we even talked about this much at the last meeting. So this copy is, you've probably seen it before, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to give you another one. For those online, it's posted under the workflows, documentation and training, and then cataloging. And then it's multi-page, so it's a guide. It's towards the middle of the page, so this proposal for rethinking cataloging practices for high volume serials. Again, this may be familiar, but again, I wasn't sure if we really touched on this too much at the last meeting. Remember, we want to move towards records that have the year in the title, so that will help alleviate trouble we're having for weekly and other high volume serials where there's lots of issues attached and they're very clunky to catalog, and they're also very slow to display in the RSA cat for your patrons. So it's both the back and the front end that we're concerned about. I still, again, would like to have these records ready later this year for 2018 so we can start this in the new year. But remember, if you look on page 3 of the handout, I started to do some looking, and some of these titles we actually don't have that many issues attached. Some of them, though, I know are problems, like People and Time, Consumer Reports. But remember, we're not going to be doing these annual records for all magazines, just for the high volume ones. I wanted to mention too, because there's been interest in doing this for additional magazines, but I think first we need to see how this goes just with a select list, since it will take some time to create these records. One thing I wanted to mention too, if we have the records, again, what we're going for is to have these 2018 records ready at the end of the year. What we're going to do is ask call number and item maintenance libraries that catalog your magazines that way to start using these records, because I know for you, especially after the past month helping a couple libraries put in magazines on these high volume records, I know the call number and item maintenance libraries need these records first. So that's who will start using these. The serial control libraries will come later, because as you attach to these high volume records, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you're getting any trouble, are you, when you attach to People or Time?
Not when we attach to it, it's just a matter of when the like reference library is trying to pull it up, it takes a long time.
Correct, yeah, so you see it from the front end as a problem with the RSA cat. Yeah, ideally, again, serial control libraries will be using this, but since that effect is to be determined, and SWAN, I talked to Scott Brandwine, who is the BIB services manager at SWAN, and he actually is very overwhelmed right now because he has an impending deduplication project with CERC-9X, and he has 2 consortia, Magic and Link, joining SWAN in the first quarter of next year. So he is glad to talk about this, but said that he probably will not have time, which is fine because there's a lot going on here. So we do plan to work together on the serial control piece, but right now the emphasis is going to be on call number and item maintenance library, since that's where the bigger headache is, at least on the back end. So once these records are ready, we'll post to the listserv. We will not close the comprehensive records because serial control libraries will still use them, so we won't close records with the date range and the title to help public services staff. We won't do that until everybody is using annual records. So we'll try and do a phased implementation of this. Okay, any questions about that? Okay. Let's see if I can go back. We should be to the OCLC piece of the agenda, so agenda item number 7. How many of you, I think it was earlier this month, saw the message on the OCLC listservs about the new OCLC system status dashboard? Did anybody see that? Okay, so several of you did. I thought we would take a look at that because the OCLC system status dashboard is the best way that you can get an alert if OCLC connection or WorldShare or First Search isn't working correctly. So if we go back to our committee page, I linked to it under our resources. So right here, I noticed it's a little bit slow to load. This time it was faster, but I think it's trying to pull all of the current update information about each service. So you can always check this page. Notice there's a subscribe to updates in the upper right corner. That will turn on the email notifications. OCLC mentioned they're going to stop sending system alert emails, their current system. They're going to stop that September 30th. So I would say if you could sign up for system status alerts this month, that would be helpful before those other alerts end. If you click the subscribe to updates button, notice it wants an email. I signed up my work email, but if I did my personal email, it doesn't recognize that one. So if you haven't signed up before and put in your email, notice it gives you additional fields. It does want your institutional symbol, and you can look up your symbol here in the directory if you're unsure. It should be able to tell your time zone from your internet browser, but if not, of course, pick Central. There's quite a few applications listed. Definitely pick connection. Notice if you click the off, it turns green to on. If your library uses the WorldShare Interlibrary Loan or you use First Search, those are probably the 3 most relevant applications, but like I said, there are several listed. I won't click register, but that would be your next step, and then it emails you an auto-generated message, and you click the link to confirm it. So it's pretty easy to sign up, but just be aware, like I mentioned, they're going to end those system alerts pretty soon here. So this will be your way to know if the system at OCLC is either a planned or an unplanned outage, and I know they do tend to have those. It seems like at least once a week. Okay, any questions about the system status? Okay, a couple of things about our batch load that we do. I know we mentioned this a little bit already in the context of deduplication holdings that were on incorrect records and they're being restored to correct records. I wanted to share with you what our schedule is for these batch loads that we do. And our fiscal year just started this July 1st. When the fiscal year starts, we always get a new batch load schedule. The information about the batch load schedule, it's in the OCLC Connection client user and browser guides. I linked those at the bottom of the database management committee page, so it does have the schedule in there if you need it written down. But the schedule for this fiscal year, we're going to update your holdings based on your workflows holdings in OCLC 9 times. So it's going to be at the beginning of each month, except in April, August, and December. So April, August, and December, there will be no batch loads, so your holdings will just be submitted the next month when we do the upload. We catch both additions and deletions from workflows, and we have a third-party vendor called the Markup Quality that takes our data that James exports and they upload it to OCLC and do quality control checking of it. Remember, the goal of this batch load is to make your holdings visible on WorldCat, where the State Library Catalog is, and then also for the interlibrary loan requests in WorldShare. Okay, I did want to mention, because this we talked a little bit about at the users group, to benefit from these batch updates, your library needs to meet 2 conditions. So the first condition is you need to be an OCLC member, and I know most of you in the room are. There's a few RSA libraries that aren't, but most of you are. The second condition to benefit from this batch service, you're not manually updating your holdings in OCLC at the time of cataloging. So I wanted to ask, does anybody know if you're manually updating holdings, or do you just let our batch service take care of it?
We used to manually, but we quit once we realized that it wasn't catching.
Yeah, good. Liza at Peoria, for those online, said that they used to update holdings manually in Connection at the time of cataloging. But she's right. We've discovered, and this is Melissa online at Quincy, could definitely back me up. We discovered in the case of Quincy, where they were updating holdings manually before they joined RSA, they didn't have a batch load. All of those holdings that they had manually updated were not being caught by our batch service.
And TMQ, the markup quality company, confirmed with us that their service is powered by what's in workflows, not what libraries do in OCLC. So I thought I would log in here because I know soon after we talked about this at the users group meeting, there was confusion about, well, what does it mean if I'm updating holdings manually? So again, I don't recommend that you do this, but I wanted to at least show you the process so that if you or someone at your library may be doing this, you can have a discussion because you probably will want to stop. If you're manually updating holdings, you'll need to delete holdings manually. So let's just take a look and see how this process works. Again, just so you can understand what we're discouraging you from trying to do. Oh my. Hopefully that won't affect the volume on on the microphone here. Okay. Okay. You've probably seen this record before if you've taken training with me. I like the lemon jelly cake record. But again, what we don't recommend that you do is update holdings manually. But if you are doing that, you're logged in. You go to Action, Holdings, Update Holdings. Notice now at the top of the record it says it's held by IHX. IHX would be replaced with your library's 3-letter holding symbol. The problem is, like Liza mentioned, like we found out from TMQ, and like Quincy Public has noticed, if these are manually updated, the batch service, it's basically invisible to the batch because it wasn't it's in workflows, but it didn't have a creation point in workflows with the batch because it sees it as being created in OCLC versus in our database. And since it can't see it in the database, TMQ doesn't know to remove it once you delete it. It's basically invisible. So if this were manually updated, when you delete this item from workflows, you would come back to connection and you would have to go back to Action, Holdings, and Delete Holdings. And then notice it says no holdings in IHX, so that confirms it's been removed. I'm glad most of you in the room, none of you in the room are doing that, but I do think it's worth going over because, like I said, there's been some questions about what it means to actually manually update holdings. Okay, if there's any older items in your collection that were cataloged probably before we began the batch service in the late 1990s, those very well could still have your holding symbol attached in OCLC because, again, they were updated in OCLC. That's its creation point, and the TMQ service can't see those even though they're in our database. So any older holdings, you could use that same approach to delete the holdings, or you can share them with the help desk and we'll remove them for you, whatever works better. Okay, any questions about the holdings, updating manually versus batch? Okay. Take a look at our agenda. Okay. This next topic I'm hoping we can have discussion about. This proposal to rework workflows bib load procedures. So I have another document. I think, Kelly, sorry to pick on you again, but Ron does the chat monitor and Lisa's taking notes. So if you could hand this one out. And then for those online, I do have this proposal posted. Thank you. So at the bottom of our Database Management Committee meeting under Documents, here's this proposal for reworking workflows load bibliographic record procedures. Let's open that.
Erica, you can't make that print any bigger.
Let's see. How's that?
That's wonderful.
Oh, good. Okay, so again, I'd like this to be a discussion, but what we're proposing, and this actually has stemmed from conversations with Peoria Public, with Normal Public, internally. We know everybody shares the same goal. We want to create and maintain a database that has the best possible records in it. That's our ultimate goal. What we'd like to do, though, is rework BibLoad procedures to make sure that we're getting and keeping the best possible records. So I thought we would go through this, and like I said, if you have questions or concerns, chime in. So what we're proposing is RSA libraries that copy, catalog, and connection, and this is what we do training on. You don't make edits to OCLC records, you don't create original records, you use good existing records as is. So this is several of you in the room. We'll call you the copy cataloging OCLC libraries. You'll continue to load records into workflows for any items that you need to catalog but you can't find a match. And I'm hoping this is your procedure already. You go to connection when you can't find the match in workflows, so that part won't change. When you load these records, and I put a screenshot here, your load bibliographic records report template that you use, it's going to continue to load those records with a date cataloged of never. That allows the records to be replaced easily if they need to be by that same record again, ideally if it's been upgraded. So that this piece would not change. You're looking for records for new items, they'd be assigned the never date cataloged. If you go to the second page, the change comes into play, again, for copy cataloging libraries. You won't overlay existing records anymore. And we've started to notice some trouble with existing records in our database being overlaid, and edits, especially if the edits were done locally and not able to be done on the master OCLC record. We've noticed local edits and other edits are tending to be lost when records are overlaid if they were already in the database. So this would be where the change comes into play. So if you try to load as a copy cataloging library, a record to replace an existing record in our database, and this only has to do with OCLC records. You'll still be able to replace brief records. I know a lot of you with on orders do that. So this involves OCLC records. If you're trying to overlay an existing OCLC record, in that record that's already in the database, it uses, if you look in this screenshot on the next page, on page 3, a protected date. Notice the date cataloged is a specific date. That specific date would be assigned by what we call an advanced OCLC library, a Peoria, a Normal, a Quincy, several others of you that I need to find out if you're doing originals and edits on records, as well as us internally on the cataloging team. So date created would be used to preserve edits to protect the record, but it would prevent overlay of the record if it's already in the database. That being said, though, advanced libraries will be able to overlay each other's records. It's going to involve, though, copy cataloging libraries. If the record's in the database, you'll need to use it. And then if it needs an enhancement, maybe it's an encoding level 3M or 8. I know several of you are already reporting these. If it needs to be upgraded, or if you notice it's been updated in connection and you feel it needs that enhanced description, you would submit the cataloging request. As a copy cataloging library, you wouldn't bring in the record again, you would use what's there. Does that make sense? So it is a change, but I'm actually hoping it could streamline your workflow. As a copy cataloging library, you use the record in workflows. If you can't find the record in workflows, you go to OCLC like you've been doing. But if the record is in workflows, you attach and it's mediocre in its description, that would be when you submit the cataloging request and not try and bring it in again. Let me ask, does anybody who copy catalogs, do you bring in records again into workflows, or do you tend to use just what's in the database? Okay.
Say it's an I or an I record, it's not a DLC record, we will go to OCLC and find an 8 that is and bring that in.
Okay, so that would be a separate record that you're bringing in. And then you would report that to the help desk. Okay. And then hopefully when we get that, we move the copies. Yeah, Rhonda's shaking her head. Yeah, from the subpar non-DLC record. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like at the copy cataloging level, everybody's checking workflows first, and if the record's there, you're just using it. Okay, that's actually what we want to move towards, because if you're already using that approach, you won't struggle with this error that you'll see if you try to overlay the existing record. This error here about the flexible key already exists. That involves a record like that shown on the third page where it's unable to be replaced by a copy cataloging library because it's been protected in its date catalog. Okay, how about online? Does anybody, Rhonda, have any questions online?
Rebecca from Farmington says she just uses what's in the database.
Okay.
She doesn't put anything in the DLC.
Okay, good. Yes, thank you, Rebecca. That helps knowing that you too just use what's in workflow. Okay, so this bullet point below the bibload error, we actually talked about, because remember this is a good step and a step that you're already doing where you won't have to bring in the record again if it's in the database. We talked too about the next step about submitting the cataloging request. If again you're a copy cataloging library, you notice the record needs to be improved, especially if it's an encoding level 3M or 8 like what Rhonda showed you. So that procedure would stay the same, use the record, but submit the cataloging request. And this next point, I think everybody is doing this too based on how you said you're using the record in workflows, but it sounds like if you find the existing record in workflows and it matches your item, it sounds like you do a check of it and then you just attach your item. If it's a good record, you don't have to submit the cataloging request. So I didn't want anybody to feel like as we rework dates that every record you find in workflows, if it's not top-notch, needs a cataloging request. That's not the case. We basically want to see the request when it's one of those minimal encoding levels or you notice a specific problem or deficiency with it. Okay, if there's agreement on this proposal to start having the advanced libraries, so those RSA libraries that edit OCLC records and or create original records, such as, but not limited to, Peoria and Normal, public libraries, as well as internally here with the RSA cataloging team. All records that those advanced libraries start to load into workflows, whether they're new to the database or they're overlaying existing records, those will have that protected date catalog, the today setting, which shows up as a specific date once it's assigned. That will start to be assigned mostly to ensure that the edits that are being made to records are being preserved. And then that too would help with database quality and then on the front end what your patrons are seeing in the catalog. Like it mentions here, a lot of times OCLC records are edited to provide the best description, series, statements, summaries, subject headings, contents, notes. So all of those descriptive elements that provide good access for patrons. This last bullet point on the third page, so remember, since copy cataloging libraries won't be overlaying existing records, the advanced libraries will take care of this. We'll be doing the overlaying of existing records to improve the description. Okay, so before we talk about next steps for this, there are procedural details that we would need to talk about with the advanced libraries about using the today date, but I feel like that's a discussion that will come with when we can form a group of those libraries, which is actually the last topic on the OCLC piece of the agenda. So there are some details about using this protected date setting that would affect the advanced libraries. But at this point, do you have any questions about this change? Okay. How about online? Are there any questions? No? Okay. Okay, I did ask Kendall because I felt like this is more procedural, so we don't necessarily need a vote on this, but I do think it would be helpful just to have agreement on the group to move forward with this, and there's some next steps listed here, but I think that agreement would be helpful to have before we convene a group of the advanced cataloging libraries where we talk about more procedurally how this would work, as well as cataloging best practices. So I think the first thing we need to do is just agree that we can move forward with protecting records and having copy cataloging libraries just be responsible for loading new records, not replacing. So if anyone has any concerns at this point, feel free to chime in. It doesn't sound like it, but again, if that changes, let me know. So what we should do now, since there seems to be agreement, I'd like to convene a group, like I mentioned, of the advanced cataloging libraries. And I know both Normal Public and Peoria Public are interested. I need to reach out to a few more libraries to get this group together so that we can talk about procedures for using the protected date, best practices. I have some other ideas too what this group could help me with, but again, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I feel like once that group meets and we agree how to use this date, then we can decide on a date when this would take effect. So for the time being, we'll continue to have loading records the way it is currently, but once the cataloging group meets for the advanced libraries, we can decide a date this will go into effect, and then it can be shared on the listserv. Okay, so does that seem like a reasonable approach, is to try and get agreement on how to use it, and then we can announce a specific date? Okay, the last detail mentioned on here, and this is where it starts to blend with the creation of this advanced cataloging libraries group, we'll need to revise those core competencies for cataloging staff at RSA member libraries. This document was last revised last year to have a couple minor revisions, but I think what we need to actually do, and this is something the advanced catalogers group will help me with initially, and then we'll bring it to this wider group in January, is revise this OCLC cataloger level to a copy cataloger level. And then we would add a level for the advanced cataloger, since there's two separate levels now, particularly pertaining to loading records. One of you will be a today, new records only. The other will be today records. You're doing overlays and new records. So I think we'll need revisions to these core competencies, but if we can start with the advanced libraries, then move it to this group and then to the RSA Board of Directors for approval at their February 1st meeting, that could give us thorough documentation of these different levels that'll correspond with the procedures we've agreed on. Okay, and that's what's mentioned here on the proposal document, those next steps. Okay. Thank you for agreeing that we need to rethink this so we can protect records in our database. I know this is a change from what we usually did, but I do think it's the right decision so we can get the best possible description. One other step I didn't put on here, if your library should be considered for advanced cataloging status, please send me an email. And let me know the first and last names of the catalogers, their preferred email addresses, so that as we start to convene this group, pick meeting dates, I'll have an idea of who's involved. But there's a few of you I need to reach out to because I suspect you may be doing the more advanced tasks, and if you're not at the meeting, I know I need to reach out. But if you are listening or here and know that you do this and should be considered, please let me know. Okay, any questions about that? I've blended the agenda items. So we've talked about reworking BibLoad procedures and then this advanced libraries group. A few other details. Again, I don't have dates for the advanced libraries group, but what I'd like to see happen, and I think Normal and Peoria, this sounds good to them too, we can meet periodically just to talk not only about BibLoad procedures, but best practices for those of us that are cataloging at the more advanced level. I do think having somebody look at the draft of the competencies would be helpful before we take it to the larger group. So the competencies piece would be something helpful to do. And I think too, talking about different database maintenance reports that can be done by advanced libraries to make sure records are good quality. So I think there's discussion topics for this group, but of course I'm willing to take suggestions too. So if there's things you're noticing or doing internally that you think need to have discussion. I did talk to Kendall and he said RSA can accommodate if you want to meet in person, if you want to meet virtually. We may need to look into a different conference call line. With GoToTraining like we're using today, there's a call-in option, but it's not a 1-800 number. So we might have to explore a different conference call line, but there is some flexibility in how this group can meet, whether it's here, whether it's at libraries that belong to the group, whether it's virtually, but that's something we can discuss more once we convene as a group. Okay, so any questions about that group? Besides Peoria and Normal, does that seem like a good idea, even if you wouldn't be in the group? But yeah, I just feel like we need to be sharing more. There's a lot going on, and there's variation in how we're doing things. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes, Lori says yes. Okay. I think the last thing on here is my update. Yeah, okay, so these will be the last two handouts, Kelly, I promise. The first thing I'll have Kelly hand out to you is the RSA contact list. I can't remember if Kendall shared this on the listserv or not, but we recently revised this when Kelly and Lisa joined us, and the other thing is my report. So thank you. So for those online, we'll go back to the database page. We'll go to the bottom. I think I'll show you where the contact list is posted from our home page. That's probably more helpful. So it's just from the RSA NFP.com homepage. There's the support staff info. And then Kendall put the contact list in the body of the page, and then it's this little second yellow click here link to download. Notice there's more focus on the help desk, which is a good thing because I know sometimes being out and about for training visits, it makes it tricky to keep on top of direct email. So it lists the help desk email and the phone, the after hours cell phone in case you have a workflows connectivity emergency. And then Kendall did put, though, each staff member, the department, and then their direct email, because we know some correspondence, for example, if you're interested in the advanced libraries group, that would go to me. It wouldn't need to go to the help desk. So we know there's some things that would be better sent to individual staff. So we did put direct emails on there. Okay, any questions about the contact list? Okay. On the supervisor's update report, let me get to that. That's back on the committee page, or for those in the room, you've got the paper copy. Okay, so back on the database page, right here, let's see if I can blow it up again. Let's see. Okay. Some of these membership changes I know we talked about at previous meetings. Bushnell and Prairie Creek Public Libraries, they're both union-list libraries, so they just catalog in workflows. They don't do circulation or holds. They're nearly finished cataloging and doing inventory and weeding, so they're on my list to visit this fall to do discussion of best practices, to talk about batch editing their union list collections to online collections. So those two are coming along and are looking to start entering patrons in the coming months so they can then start to circulate and do holds. We have several libraries that became new basic online libraries. So they're doing circulation and holds, doing cataloging. Valley District Library, Martha visited them. They're now circulating. They were union lister. Knoxville was a brand new library. They're now circulating and doing holds. The next two, Neponset and Williamsfield Public Libraries, those are new libraries and they just got started cataloging last month. So they are eager to get started, and they've started, and I think they're realizing that it'll be several months before they're ready. I know that especially one of them was a little bit disappointed because she thought there was a way somehow when you found the correct record, it could just autofill your information. So I think they're realizing that you do need to do each item individually. But they're excited to get started, and they do have at least a couple hundred items each put in. Williamsfield is bigger than Neponset. Williamsfield is I feel like it's closer to Galesburg. Neponset's closer to Kewanee, but my sense of direction is terrible, so don't go on that. And then Ransom Public Library. This one, I think we're still waiting on Cersei Dynex to create their library code in the database, so that one is right now in progress. And then we did not put this on here because this actually just came up, but the Flanagan Public Library, which is a brand new library in the northern part of our service area, they reached out to Kendall earlier this week, and I think they'll submit, if their board agrees, an application to become an RSA member, but they would be approved either at the November or the February users group and board meetings, but they would have to wait, though, behind some of these other libraries to get started. There were some new home locations and item types, as well as item categories 4 and 5. I know I have a few more from Jennifer at Alpha Park, so I'll take a look at those. No, I think as you're coming up with new codes, it's helpful to have suggestions. The thing I'll warn you against, and I didn't put it on here, I don't recommend having the same codes in both item category 4 and 5 menus unless you have a very clear distinction when you're using which code. With these two new libraries, Neponset and Williamsfield, they've put the same codes in both menus and they're not being used consistently. So for example, romance is in both category 4 and 5. It's not being used consistently, so it needs to be in one or the other. So that's something I wanted to mention because with these new libraries, I see it already becoming a problem. But like I said, if you're using the code in both menus and know when to use it, that's fine. But if it's just being used interchangeably, that won't give you good search results for your patrons or statistics on your collection. Okay, a few details about cataloging training. So these new and upgrading libraries are our priority right now. I am keeping a list because there's been staff turnover at several schools and public libraries. So I'm keeping a running list so that when the new libraries and the upgrading libraries are on their way with training, we can start to visit existing libraries that have new staff. So that's what these schools and publics are towards the middle of page 3. We will do workshops again, but we'd like to get the backlog taken care of. We'd like to get the new and upgrading libraries on their way with cataloging training. So we will resume teaching the basic workflows and the OCLC workshops, but when things settle down a little bit. The transition visits, I have had questions about these where we go over cataloging competencies. You get your new individually named workflows cataloging account. We talk about database maintenance strategies. We reassign circulation reports. These visits, I admit right now, are at the bottom of our priority list since we have new libraries, new staff, need to resume workshops. So these transition visits will resume, but at this point it's the lowest on the list. I won't go over these in rote, but there are several upcoming professional development opportunities. Some of them are free online that you can attend as a webinar just from your library. One of them, though, is at the Galesburg Public Library on October 3rd. It's a Tuesday. RDA cataloging for video and sound recordings. That should be a good workshop because it has the, I don't want to call her an instructor, but a cataloger from the Illinois Heartland's Cataloging Maintenance Center, and she used to be the instructor of the LTA program at the Illinois Central College. So her name is Pam Thomas, so she'll be presenting a program on RDA, video and sound recording. Okay, let's see, there's one webinar right below it. I haven't posted it yet on L2, but we do plan to have a group viewing of this webinar on cataloging 3D materials like kits. This, again, probably most helpful for those advanced libraries, but we will do an invitation to this webinar and post it on L2. The book repair workshop, the second part of it, Roxy Klassen from Morton Public had the Pumpkin Festival today. They're starting to get ready, so she said that she couldn't come today, but we're shooting for her to do the second part of her book repair at our next meeting on January 11th in the last half hour. Okay, any questions about that report? Okay, I have just a few other details to share. Probably maybe about 5 more minutes. If anyone needs to leave, I completely understand. So notice it says here under agenda item number 8, duplication of RSA listserv posts. Has anybody noticed you should be seeing 2 listserv posts in your email? I don't want to do updates. Okay, not now. Oh, shoot, it won't let me open it. Okay, one of these, okay, there we go. I always click the wrong thing. One of these should have more formatting, and then the other is more plain text, like this one. So old format versus new format. If you're not seeing both of those emails, let us know. Just contact the help desk. You should be subscribed to both the old and the new listservs. Eventually we'll phase out the old listserv, but at this point you should be getting 2 messages. A quick update on the Cataloging Maintenance Center. I reached out to Vince, who's the contact person. He said their turnaround time is about 30 days, give or take, staff vacation time and then the complexity of the item. Keep contacting him before you send anything just to make sure it's eligible and to receive delivery instructions. So nothing really new has changed there. Keep using the service. The cataloging working group, I wanted to give an update on this. This was a committee of the Rails Consortia Committee through the Rails Board. We just approved last Friday, both Liza and I are on the committee to represent RSA. We just approved a document that talks about training best practices, cataloging competencies, consortial cataloging issues. We just approved a big document that's now going to be sent to the Consortia Committee at their October 16th meeting. They're expected to approve it and not to need revisions, hopefully. Yeah, fingers crossed. This group has been meeting for the past year, and it's been very intense. There's been a lot of work with this group. So we have a document. We've passed it to the Consortia Committee, and then the Consortia Committee decides how they will disseminate the document. I'm not really sure what the plan is. I do know for RSA, once I know it's been approved by the consortia committee, this is something actually I'd like that advanced cataloging libraries to help me craft a response to it. And then we can talk about it in this group, but I'm not sure what the plan is on Rails's end to talk about this document, but on our end, we definitely will look at it and address what it talks about in the context of RSA. Okay, before I turn it back over to Liza and Aaron, just two other little details. At the CERSI Dynex conference earlier this year, they talked about their Power of Libraries campaign, where a portion of the proceeds go to the ALA Advocacy Office. CERSI Dynex has released a whole line of products that have this I Believe in the Power of Libraries logo, things like buttons and shirts. I just wanted to mention it because, again, part of the proceeds go to the ALA office. And they're not really CERSI Dynex branded either. It doesn't have a big CERSI Dynex logo on it. So it is pretty, I don't want to say generic, but it's vendor neutral, we'll say. I'm already thinking Christmas gifts for people. The stuff ships fast, too. It does ship pretty fast. Kendall ordered some things. Okay, and then the last item, this is still tentative, but there may be a Rails staff retreat for consortia staff on Friday, November 10th, and if that's the case, there'll be reduced support that day, but that's a tentative right now, so I thought I would just mention that, and if we have plans firm up for that, we'll post on the listserv. That was exactly 5 minutes over. Okay.
Okay, so step number 9 is other database business, and I'm going to assume there isn't any unless somebody really pipes up real quick. Online? Anyone? No. Good. The next RSA, the next RSA database meeting, there will be a potential in-between meeting to be announced. Stay tuned. The next full meeting is either in person or virtual attendance on Thursday, January 11th. May there be no snow and ice. Here at RSA in East Peoria for in person. And if there is nothing else, then we will adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in January.
Go to lunch.
Happy holidays. Yeah, early. Okay.